announcements for this Sunday. I hope that you will visit with our gentleman who's selling the olive wood items after Mass. If you haven't done but a brief look to be coming in, then you can have a good look at the items that are there after Mass. I have invited him to come down. A couple weeks ago we thought he might come, but that didn't work out, so this is our opportunity to buy what we like from his stores there, his wares. Also, I will be showing a viewing of the Gosnell film, which is about that abortion doctor who was sentenced, who was found criminally guilty. That will be shown a few blocks from the chapel, the clubhouse of Balboa Ridge, next Sunday. That'll be February 23rd. So we have a head count for chairs. Please let the coordinator know, Arlene Parizo. You can let her know through email or text if you will attend. And again, might be just a little bit too harsh for little kids, but nonetheless very good for us to see if you haven't done so already. Next Sunday, well, March 1st, we will have the giving of ashes. So we'll give out the ashes on March 1st. You want to turn in all your blessed palms, that we might take those and burn them for the ashes used on Ash Wednesday or Ash Sunday. Remember that Ash Wednesday is a day of fast and abstinence. That is an obligatory day to abstain from meat and also just to keep the fast. So we must take it very serious. Also, don't forget to check out the new chapel app for our different society chapels. The one for here is San Diego, so if you look up at fsspx.today, I try to keep that updated with at least basic times and schedule. It's easy for me to go in and edit that, so keep you up to date. So take a look on the USA and click on San Diego, California, and everything should be much more clear when you start clicking on the icons. A few other things that's been brought to your notice already. Today we won't have any class after Mass. Next Sunday we'll be showing the video, so today I just ask you to spend a little time maybe at our generous gentleman who's come down to all the way from Arcadia area to set up these tables of all of the wood items. I appreciate the fact that Father Riggy replaced me last weekend. I was in Los Salette to give a recollection to the boys' school, the boarding school. It went very well. I'm very glad to visit there for the first time. That was my first visit to the campus. 7 of our boys from Arcadia are there. That might be the highest number from one chapel. That's quite a blessing. And next year we hope to have 9, maybe close to 10. So please pray for these boys of ours that leave our schools and go to these boarding schools of the society. We're hoping that more vocations come from these schools, not only priestly, but fatherly vocations. These young men are put through a routine that's just this short of boot camp. And so it's good for boys. Very good for them. It's amazing how they function. They take care of that place. Those boys, they wash dishes, they help in the kitchen, they clean up after themselves, and of course they have some very rigorous physical exercise. And of course they go to chapel and they pray Compline with the priests. Impressive. The sound, the volume of 83 boys praying Compline. Impressive. I wish that we could all have learned Compline when we were 13, 14, 15 years old. It would make quite a difference, maybe in our spiritual life, but definitely in our life of the church. So what a great gift we have in that. Pray that our boys may go. Pray that these boys persevere, and they may be our future leaders. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. And Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Serve our dear faithful. On this Sunday, Sexagesima Sunday, we hear about the story of Noah. This is recounting now the story of Noah. First it was Adam, it's Septuagesima. Now it's Noah. The Holy Mother Church reminds us about, and then it will be the other patriarchs as we get closer to Lent. Noah, of course, was that chosen man and his family to enter the ark. And the fathers of the church see the ark as a symbol of our ark, the church, Holy Catholic Church. So we do well to reflect today on what it means to stay in this church. And I want to partly give you encouragement this way by some few points that I have for you in the sermon, but also for you to meditate, reflect upon what is it going to mean for us during this Lent to perfect our souls so that we are truly good members of the church. And so I have for you a parallel. It's really analogous. Many things are that way in the natural life and the spiritual life. Let's say a man, on the natural end of things, was left to survive, fend for himself out in the wilderness. There are 4 things that he would need to be able to live. With hope of rescue, with hope of getting out of a tight spot. Whether it be the hunter who gets lost in the woods, or the military man who's been shot down out of his plane, perhaps. Or maybe it's just one of us out for a hike and one evening we get lost. We would have to follow these rules to survive. But it's also necessary, by analogy, in the spiritual life. So when I give you the natural ones, I want you to be thinking about the supernatural end of it, and I will try to explain that also. And then you're thinking to yourself, when you hear these things, what do I need to do this Lent in order to be rescued? What will I need to do to survive in this world? What will I need to do to live the life of grace, to maintain it? And not just that, but do as the gospel says, having heard the word, hold it fast, and bear fruit in patience. That's what we want. I think back to these boys who lost the lead. 4 years of high school, 4 years of good, solid formation, of discipline. These young men have to have something to do after leaving Los Salette. Otherwise, it's like holding a big loaf of bread that's molding in your arms. You don't know what to do with it. It'd be better if you were given little crumbs from the master's table than to have a whole loaf of bread that goes to mold. So when you're given a gift, a lot is asked of you. So what are these 4 things? Protection, rescue, water, and food. Pretty much that order. You're out in the wilderness, stuck out there, pretty much subject to the elements. You have to protect yourself from them. That's the first thing. Second to that would be to set up your rescue plan. How are you going to be able to get out of this? Or let others know? And then lastly, or not lastly, but next to that, before the evening ends, or the next day comes, you better have some water. And then finally food, but water's more important. The protection that we hope to receive in spiritual life, dear faithful, comes from the church. It's really our habitat. It's our home. It's our protection. So as I'm giving you these things, think a little deeper and think about where you're at in the church. Are you just coming barely in and out the door all the time? Or are you coming down the nave? You come into the vestibule, you're almost up here. Maybe. Or are you kneeling at the communion rail all the time in attitude and spirit, ready to be fed by the shepherd? As a sheep, always wanting to eat, knowing how helpless you are without food. Just trying to survive. That's what we want to do. That's where we want to go, is to be always in disposition and attitude, kneeling at the foot of the shepherd, ready to eat because we're famished, we're starving. So don't let yourself just be coming in and out the door back there at the church. That's not the life to lead as a Catholic. You need to be in the church, not only in the church, but finding your way closer and closer to the altar, at least for a lay person to come as far as the communion rail, and kneel down and say, I'm ready for you, Lord. Total disposition of soul you can't find outside the church. You can't find outside the communion. Outside of receiving our Lord. So that's our protection in the spiritual life. But in the, let's say, the natural life, the analogy is that we have to have clothing, shelter, and fire. Now I leave it to you to figure out, what are the things in my life as a Catholic which provide me clothing to my soul, shelter for my soul, and fire in my soul? What's going to help me survive in this valley of tears? You know, a Catholic's life is not, we like to complain about the situation in the church today as though we have it bad, and in some ways we do compared to the past. But you know what? Catholics have always had to fight. If they stop fighting, in a way they stop becoming Catholic, they stop being Catholic. They have to always fight. Look at the situation in history of Catholics. They're always fighting to maintain something. And then when they maintain it, yes, there could be a moment of glory, what we might call the Middle Ages or otherwise. But then what happens? They stop fighting. And they become complacent. And original sin takes over. Then they start back over again. Some other fight. Something they have to stand up for. It's always that way. So let's not be too quick to say, oh, poor us. No, we're Catholics. I guess you can say poor me if you're a Catholic. But it's a fact. It's a matter of life for us. We have to always fight for the King. Always fight for Jesus Christ. The second thing is rescue. What I worry about with us Catholics on the spiritual side of things is that if we make the analogy with the natural side of things, where we need location and signaling, imagine a soldier out in the woods. He can't be just standing under a full canopy of trees and hope that somebody's going to see him from above, or to sit in a hole. He's got to devise systems whereby he is seen by those who can rescue him, that he's ready to be rescued. And it's the same with us in the spiritual life. What kind of signals do we give God? If you're just barely coming in and out the back door of the church, what kind of signal is that to God that he should help you? You really care about him? You really want him? Why should he help you and rescue you? Just because you wave a flag that says I'm Catholic? Come on, think about it. Right here's the man who gets help, kneeling before the altar, ready to receive communion. That's the man who receives help. On his knees in humility. Not one who just kind of vacillates in and out of his faith. That's for the birds. What kind of signal are we giving God? Where does God want to help us? Where does he want to see us? He wants to see us at our duties, humbly at our duties, adoring him. It's really those 4 acts of adoration, contrition, thanksgiving, and supplication. That's what he wants to see us doing. That's a signal to him that we want to be rescued, that we need his help, that we're not sufficient of ourselves. Second to that, of course, is water, and while that has a really strong analogy in the Catholic Church, is baptism. It's more important than food, because it's by baptism that we come to the food, which is called the Eucharist. So in that way, it's more important. It's a progression, right? If you don't drink the water, you can't eat the food because you're going to fall apart and die. So you take the water. The water is very necessary for man on the natural level, very necessary for him in the supernatural level, baptism. But it's not just sufficient, dear faithful, to be baptized. We have to spend our time doing whatever is necessary to collect the remaining water, this way of speaking, all the graces. You know that when we tell the baby and parents that when they are in the baptismal ceremony, we tell them that now you have the right to the other sacraments. You have the door open to heaven. Exactly. You have to walk. You have to collect everything along the way. You have to persevere. So in my notes to you today for water, you have to be collecting always the graces of God. After baptism, you always have to be going around collecting them. There are many sources of grace. The primary source, the sacraments. There are many little graces that come to us every day for every single action that we do. And then, of course, when it comes to the food, ultimately, where I want you to be, that's always at the foot of the altar, ready to receive Holy Communion, always ready to be nourished by our Lord. But that's not just in Holy Communion. He gives us so many, as I said before, graces. He gives us so many opportunities to snare or trap him. So many opportunities to grab things of God that he kind of teases us with. We go through life, I like to think, on a path full of treasure chests. And it's really only the man who's observant and wise who will start to open them and say, okay, I'll take that, I'll take this. He will fortify himself with all of those wonderful things that God has given along this road, along this path. We won't overlook it. You know, it's something we see as priests. As the years go on, we see so many beautiful souls, so many wonderful souls who have been given great graces, like wonderful graces. Not only that they're a pretty special soul, but then God puts very special graces in them for them. He allows them to have so many gifts, and then they squander them. And they're gone. Maybe it would have been better if that particular soul had scavenged all its life. Maybe it would remain faithful, because it always has to make the effort. Rather than just having the things dumped on it, and then it says, oh, this is nice, I'm spoiled, take it for advantage, take it for granted, and then what? So don't forget, if we have to scavenge, dear faithful, for our graces, to remain faithful, do it. That's a fighting spirit. Especially when you're starving for grace. You scavenge. You look everywhere for it. Every opportunity. Sometimes we want all the big glory as a soul that seeks God. And ultimately, we have to be happy to say that we're so happy to receive the crumbs from the Master's table. If he would just give me the crumbs from his table, it would be so much better. So much stronger. I would scavenge those as much as I could. We must be gluttons for grace. All the little things that we can find. That being said, and you're reflecting on where you're at and coming to the communion rail, how close you are really to the altar, you're thinking to yourself what resolutions you have to make in order to make a good Lent, find yourself in a better position in the church, spiritually with God. Well, then I give you an image. 3 years ago, October 13th, I was in Fatima, 2017, 100th anniversary. We stayed just outside of Fatima at a hotel, simple little hotel, very nice though, but simple. And I looked out my window as soon as I got there, and it's a beautiful church. Just right out, I could lay in my bed if I wanted and look at the church, meditate on the church. A beautiful Gothic church built by King João I, and he was married to Philippa, King of Portugal. He was a soldier, a general, who, by victory, beat the King of Castile and keeping the independence of Portugal. And so he was, by the authorities who could say such, they made him king. And then he promised Our Lady that by victory, in his victory, he would build this monastery. So he did, and he called it Holy Mary of Victory, Vitoria. Beautiful church. I wish I could show you the pictures. Pass it around, but it's not quite kosher. Just to let you see two things. What must heaven be like? If this is a Jerusalem upon earth, built from the minds of men, maybe possibly inspired, under the patronage of Our Lady, what must heaven be like? As I said, I could lay there in the bed, looking out the window, looking at this little Jerusalem. Who could not say that the Catholic Church is such a beautiful religion? And it lifts up the soul by the architecture and beauty. And then second to that, I want you to think about, if that church is so beautiful, how beautiful must be a soul? A soul in the state of grace. A soul that starts off just pretty basic. I like to think it was a fat lump of marble when God first created it. It's good, it's great, solid, will live forever. But it doesn't really become a beautiful piece of architecture until God starts chiseling at it. That's when it becomes beautiful. He has to make it what he wants. Then it's beautiful. Remember that everything in this world is beautiful because of God's engineering, of God's plan. As long as it matches up to the image of what God wants, it's beautiful. And that's what he does with our souls. So, as you're working through your plan for Lent, as you're making these resolutions, as you're thinking about your position in the church and what you need to do to be a better Catholic, think of the beauty of your soul in the state of grace. Better than that church. Sometimes I wonder, should I take that soul or that church? Well, I know the answer. You have to take your souls. Your souls are more beautiful and more important to me than that church. I wish that God would chisel at you until the day is done. It hurts. It's not what every one of us wants to hear. You want to be a lump of marble at the end of your life? You want to be a beautiful church, a beautiful image, a beautiful statue. Only God can do it. You have to cooperate. It's true. You in your survival mode of protection, rescue, water and food, you have to cooperate. God can do wonderful things with you. You want to let God work on you as an artisan so that when you die, you are what he wants for image. But you see, we don't really plan that ourselves. We have to follow providence. Follow providence. Some have it harder than others. I know. As I'm back to the same thing, right? Some are given these great gifts and they kind of just float through life and go to heaven, quote unquote. And others, scavenging around, finding their way. We're not equal. Every one of you in this chapel is not equal to the other. God gives his particular grace to each one of you to carve you out as he wants. And there's no way of determining that. You can't just say, okay, look at the manual, page 5, that's Mr. So-and-so. No, it doesn't work that way. We don't know the mind of God. We can't judge all the circumstances he's going to ask us to work through and live through. That's penance enough. Let us use it well then, our lives, our positions, our places. Strive to do better. You should find yourself doing at least 50 to 100% better than you were last year. There's no reason why not. If he's the one at work, if he's giving the grace, and I'm cooperating, all that stands in the way is my pride. And then I come to the very last point of the sermon, and that is the purity of intention. It's so important. Keep your purity of intention. Why do you do things? That's really a purity of heart. Whenever I talk about purity of heart, automatically you think, well, I don't have any sins against the 6th and 9th. It's more than that. That's a result. Inside the soul, it's a question of why do I do these things? Why do I take care of my children? Why do I pray? Why do I even go to church? You could ask yourself these questions, and I hope you can come up with the right purity of intention. I do it for the love of God. And that's why it's not a question of like or a question of sentiment or feelings. Oh, I feel good. No, it doesn't have to be that. A sense of duty, a sense of reverence, a sense of authority. I do this for the love of God. So let us pray to Our Lady of Victory, if you wish, or Our Lady of Fatima, for this great purity of soul, that we may, as survivors, as fighters, keep our faith and grow in this grace and find our place better in the church this year up Lent. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost.